Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. If it's okay with everybody, what I'd like to do, what I'd like to try to do is talk for a little bit and then maybe have a little wider discussion. Um, we'll see how that turns out. Sometimes I get a little lengthy. So you may not know that on Tuesday, the Tuesday speakers, we're committing to a main topic for the next 6 months. It could be longer, but at least for 6 months. And this topic is one of our own choosing. This is a little different from the last year or so, where we had a topic that spanned multiple weeks, sometimes months. We had the ox herding pictures, we had the precepts, we went through the chant book. And so we kind of had a theme that followed through from talk to talk. And we're beginning to pick, each speaker is going to pick a topic that is of interest to them and really dig deep into it and really spend some time with it. So it should give us an opportunity to really soak this up and then share it. I mean, that's kind of the point of these talks, is to share the things that we're learning, share the things that we're doing, share our practice. And for my topic, I've chosen Hakuin. I took an interest in him when I was studying for another talk on the 10-line Canon Sutra. Hakuin had written a letter to one of his friends or somebody who was sick, and he said that if you just chanted this 10-line Canon Sutra 1,000 times a day, because it's short enough that you can do it 500 times in the morning and 500 times in the evening, and it's 1,000 times a day, you'll be healed and you'll have long life and you'll be prosperous. And I thought, wow, what a claim from a Zen guy. What is going on? And it really shook me a little bit. Because I thought, Zen is a rational, right? The rational religion. To me, it seems like something that we have precepts against intoxicating with doctrine and things like that. And it really wasn't that long ago that Hakuin lived. It was about 300 years ago. And I'm like, what is this? So it stuck with me. And the other thing that stuck with me is the question of why I'm so resistant to it to begin with. It's not necessarily having to do with religion, but what is it? I don't know yet. I'm still kind of checking it out. Is it this supernatural kind of thing to it, which I've always been kind of drawn to, like ghosts and stuff. So what I found is there's collections of Hakuin's letters that he wrote to his friends, letters that he wrote to his students and his benefactors and officials and things like that. And so this is, they, as far as I know, they still exist. These are direct translations of his letters, and they're him. They're his voice. They're, some of them are kind of teaching, and some of them are just talking about what's going on. And they seemed really interesting. And could I dig into that and learn about this guy that said something that freaked me out? So that's why I picked Hakuin. And I don't know a lot about him yet because I've just started my journey, my exploration. But that's where we're going to start tonight. And then I'll springboard just kind of to something else. So Hakuin Ikaku. Hakuin means hidden in white, and Ikaku is wise crane. So I think those are really cool names. I think kind of all our names are really cool names. but hidden in white, wise crane. But he was a Rinzai Zen monk, and he lived from about 1685 until 1768, which is quite a long time back in that time. He was 83, and he died of natural causes in his sleep, which is, pretty cool for back in the day. Maybe it was that 10-line Canon Sutra. He was born in the town of Hara, which is near Mount Fuji. And he's known, I guess he's pretty famous, but he's known for revitalizing the Rinzai Zen tradition, the koan practice. He systematized it, and he combined that with Zazen as a practice. And so from what I've read, all the Rinzai lineage that's in existence today came from Hakuin. So he was also a sculptor and a painter. His paintings were sometimes humorous. They're examples of skillful means to kind of shake us up a little bit and get us out of our mindset. He was a master calligrapher. And as I was talking about the letters that he wrote, he also wrote a lot of things about Buddhism, just volumes and volumes. So lots of writing. And you may have heard of him in different stories, and I'm going to get to one of those stories here in a minute. Or maybe some of his poems. There's a particularly famous poem called Zazen Wasen, which is the song of Zazen, or the chant and praise of Zazen, which is pretty grandiose about Zazen. I know other speakers have talked about that. I'm not going to get into that tonight. Tonight I want to read the story of Hakuin and the baby. I don't know what it's formally called. I'm calling it Hakuin and the baby. And then use it as that stepping off point, that springboard to talk about something else that came up while I was reading it. But it would be really nice afterwards if we could have that discussion about our experiences of life, of the story. So the story goes, a beautiful girl whose parents owned a food store lived near Hakuin. One day, without any warning, her parents discovered she was pregnant. This made her parents angry. She would not confess who the man was, but after much harassment, she at last named Hakuin. In great anger, the parents went to the master. "Is that so?" was all he would say. After the child was born, it was brought to Hakuin, and by this time he had lost his reputation, but that didn't trouble him. He took very good care of the child, and he obtained milk from his neighbors and everything that he needed for the child by begging. A year later, the girl could not stand it any longer, and she told her parents the truth. The real father of the child was a young man who worked in the fish market. The mother and father of the girl at once went to Hakuin to ask forgiveness, to apologize at length, and to get the child back. Hakuin smiled and willingly yielded the child, saying, "Is that so?" And that's the end of the story. Is that so? So I know on the surface, the story is about radical acceptance, equanimity. But something about it got me thinking in a little different direction. Because the story also exhibits a fundamental attitude of Buddhism, maybe of Zen in particular, but of asking the question, is that so? When things come up. Is this thing in front of me, or is this thing inside me what I think it is? How do I investigate the so-ness, the thusness, the isness of this? What makes it easier or harder to do this investigation? Are there more beneficial or more harmful mindsets that help us in this investigation or kind of hinder us and slow us down? So these are the kinds of questions that came up to me. Um, and after I read this, I'm talking to Andrea, and she said, "Hey, have you ever heard of ask and guess culture?" Um, and it blew my mind, and it fit with a lot of stuff uh, that I'd been thinking about this story and about beneficial mindsets. So I just recently found out about ask and guess culture, so I don't know a whole lot about it. But this is an idea that some people tend toward asking and some people tend toward guessing when they're put in a situation where they don't know what's going on. And these tendencies are brought on by usually by the environment that we were born or brought up in, um, the house that we lived in. If it's a house of ask culture, then we grew up to be askers. Generally, of course, general wide sweeping generalizations. But it turns out that askers are more comfortable with taking no for an answer. Um, they're more comfortable being wrong about something or not knowing something entirely. Um, and when I heard not knowing, I thought, oh, not knowing. We're supposed to know that. But guessers, you may have guessed, are not. They don't like being wrong. They don't like being told no. They actually go through great lengths to kind of suss out the environment and suss out the situation so that if they end up asking the question, they already know it's going to be a yes or something like that because they just don't want no for an answer. So they try to figure things out for themselves and they make assumptions. Um, and this is more of a spectrum and not like a two camps thing, but I really saw in myself primarily a guesser. And it shows up in different aspects of my Zen practice, and they're not always beneficial. Uh, and part of what I feel for me and my practice that's not beneficial about guessing about my experience, particularly, is the guessing is limited. Um, I can only guess what I know already, or what I can imagine, or um, what I can project. And what I can project is the things that I already have experience for and I already think I know. Um, and they could be wildly off. But anything that I can possibly come up with is limited. It's limited to my own experience, my own thoughts, my own ideas. And this affects how I investigate what is so. When I'm confronted with something going on inside of me, the guessing starts. You know, if I feel something, like, oh, is it X? Is it anger? Is it fear? Am I frustrated? Is it because of my dog? Is it because of work? Is it because of my son? Is it because of whatever it is? I just start guessing about things and I try to put a label on it. I think that if I put a label on it, that I know it. I know what it is if I can name it and put a label on it. Um, and part of me, the part of me that has grown up to be this guesser, is comfortable thinking that I know if I know the word for something, then I know its experience. I know the same thing. It's the same as experience. But while words and labels are very useful, we're using them right now to convey ideas and to convey our experiences from one person to another, which is extremely hard to do. Um, they are they are not actually the things that we're referring to. They're a shortcut these words that we use stand in for these ideas that we're trying to share. They're much, much more than anything that we could ever describe. So, guessing what word fits my experience is inadequate to describe that experience. It's not the whole thing. It can't be the whole thing. What word or group of words can describe everything? All of this. What words can even begin to describe exactly what you're experiencing right now? So, in my opinion, we need to become. Did you see how I just hedged my bet there? I caught myself. So, we need to become more like askers. This might not be a problem for you. You might already be an asker. Totally cool. You're already on it. But we need to be more open to the possibilities of experiences that we haven't had yet. And those experiences that we can't imagine. That's what I mean by being open to them. We can't foresee them. And if we're always looking for the things that we already know and already trying to put a label on, we miss out on what actually is happening. Because these words that we use, they change our perceptions. And so if I think somebody is being angry with me, and it turns out that that's just their thinking face, I'm going to respond and think my reality is very different to what is actually being out there. That's just a small example. But as askers, we can be more comfortable with not knowing, of just being with the feelings that come up, being with what is presenting itself to us, inside or outside, whatever it is. Not worrying about labeling it, categorizing it, identifying it, cataloging it, putting it on the shelf for later, but just experiencing it fully. In order to do that, we need to drop off this language that we use to describe everything. And this language that we use to describe things, I guess, is not just the words that we're using, but things that happen so fast in our consciousness and in our subconsciousness that we don't even know they're happening. And what I have a very strong inner monologue. I like to narrate what's going on. Oh, I'm walking to the bus. I'm getting on the bus. Where's my card? Oh, that's right. I left it in my back pocket today. Ooh, on an ice mark. Um, it's not always that corny or it's not always that obvious, but it's there and it's there pretty constantly. Um, but quieting that narrator allows me to investigate the so-ness of what I'm calling wordless practice. I have a little example here that I'm going to go out on a limb. It might be a little embarrassing, but here it is. I love, I love, I love Weird Al. But love is not the right word. I don't really know the man. Saying that I love him doesn't encompass the complexities of what I feel. And the other day, I was at my computer, I was doing this fairly mundane task for work. And I thought I'd put on some music. And the last thing I was listening to was Weird Al, so I thought I'd just continue on. And I don't care for all of his music. some of it makes me a little uncomfortable even. And that tells me something too. That gives me something to pay attention to. But there's a few songs that I find extremely clever and witty, and I like the tune. And so I'm sitting there and I'm grooving on this song, and I just get this feeling. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, I'm trying to label it again. I don't know what this feeling is, but I was like, oh, there's this thing. And as a guesser, I'm just saying, I love Weird Al. Oh, that's what this is. I just love Weird Al, and this is cool. And then I immediately felt like, oh, that's not quite right. There's a little dampening of the feeling. And then I remembered what I've kind of been working on here of wordless practice and just being with the sensation in my body. And I'm like, well, what is it? How do I access that? How do I experience that? And I remembered that all I need to do is just let it be. Let it be there. I need to stop labeling and stop trying to tell what it is. And so I stopped. I stopped working. I stopped everything. And I just sat there with the music on and listening to my body. It's kind of like I was holding on to this thing. It's really hard to describe. I was holding on to this thing and I just kind of let it go. And I felt my analytical mind open. It just opened entirely. And there's this huge emotional, overwhelming sensation, and it was scary. It was scary, but I was overwhelmed. I just immediately started bawling. That's my response to most everything that's like joyous, is I just cry. I'm a crier. I just cried. And I let myself cry. And I let myself feel it. And it lasted for a few seconds. It seemed like forever. And it seemed like just that it was just a tidal wave. But then it was gone. And something that primed me to do this was a line of a Mary Oliver poem. Um, I've heard it several times now recently, but one time I think in session with Rosemary Taylor, one of our teachers, the line of, I think it's Wild Geese is the poem. And the line is, you only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. You only have to let the soft animal of your body love what it loves. And in that moment, I let it love Weird Al. And it was amazing. And I felt it. I'm out. I'm out of the closet. So feeling what's going on is essential to our understanding of ourselves, to knowing, real deep knowing. And the knowing that comes from direct experience, not the knowing that comes from labels and categorizing and remembering stuff. We begin to learn what it feels like in our body. We're learning with our body now, not with our mind anymore, to experience what the world is like around us. I mean, we only have this body to experience things with. So it's going to feel like wind, and it's going to feel like pokey rocks, and it's going to feel like color, and it's going to feel like sound. But it's all just an experience that tells us something. What is it saying? I think it's saying that the flowers aren't flowerous prettiest anymore, or whatever their names are. I'm not a flower person. But they're no longer there to be red or yellow. They're no longer there to please us at all. They just are. They're there for themselves. And we can just join in the experience of being in the world with them. The world where we're not the center, the world that's around us. We're in being with this world. We're connected with it. We're part of it. We're not different than it. Listening to that with openness, listening for that so-ness. Is that so? So I just told you a lot of things. I think I sounded definitive, but am I? I don't know. Um, so this is kind of the part where I want to turn it over and listen to experiences of other beings that can share that, if that's what you want to do. Of course, I'm also happy to answer questions or anything like that. But um, what is your what helps you to connect and to experience, connect with your experience and experience the world around you?